this host. My name is Andrew Mwans. Now, with exactly 105 days to go before the anticipated 12th of August general elections, the political temperature is getting heated up as we draw closer. Participating players are confident of carrying the day. But with all the indicators present now, does the current political environment hint on who is likely to form government? My guest tonight believes that the coming elections are a mere academic exercise because the PF will retain and maintain power. My guest is David Kapoma, a political analyst. Mr. Kapoma, good evening and welcome to this edition of the assignment program.
Good evening, Andrew, and good evening to our dear viewers.
Those of you joining the conversation on the Muvi TV Plus Bouquet, Channel 1, the Top Star Decoder, Channel 104. Later on, you'll be able to come through and give us your contributions via the number that is scrolling down your TV screen. Yet those that are joining the conversation from across the continent of Africa, yours are social media platforms. Our handle on Facebook is Ask Muvi TV. Our handle on YouTube is Ask Muvi TV. Get to those two particular platforms and give us your contributions. We're discussing, is there a window of change ahead of the 12th of August elections in Zambia? My guest again is David Kapoma, who is a political analyst. Now, let's begin off from the aspect of your assessment of the current political atmosphere as we head towards the elections. I did make mention in my introduction that we have about exactly 105 days and 10 hours to go before the general elections. So far, or thus far, what is your assessment of the current political atmosphere?
Well, thank you very much, Andrew, and I hope that as we are starting the interview, your phone is either off or on silent. we might just end up creating another scene today.
I should warn you that, please, let's try not to keep our phones.
I've actually left it outside.
No, you did well.
I didn't want to have that. But, Andrew, I think that this year's election is going to be a very interesting one. And I think it's interesting from the preparations point of view itself. It's the first time in a very long time that we have seen different political parties holding their conventions. We didn't see that happening in 2016, but we've seen that different political parties this particular year have been able to hold their conventions. And that's to show a sense that I think we're getting more serious with, first of all, the intra-party democracy at the political party level before we look at the democracy for the country. So that's a plus that I think we should congratulate ourselves as a country, because the political system is built and is consisting of all the different political parties that participate in the governance system of this country. And I want to make it very clear also, and important to note, that the governance system is not only dependent on the ruling party, but it's everybody, including those in the opposition. So when such a thing happens, I think that we have to pride ourselves as a people to realize that, yes, we are moving in the right direction. Political parties are now showing that sense of responsibility in making sure that they respect their individual constitutions by doing what they have done. And I did mention, I've made this comment a few times, that it was even more interesting to note that, first of all, the Patriotic Front did invite other political parties to their convention, which was again a plus, because part of the cry that we've had as a country is that we are divided on political lines. Now, you can imagine when the neighbor that you do not talk to decides to invite you for a meal in their own home. And I mean, it just makes the whole difference. It makes you feel different. It makes you feel welcomed to the extent that even when you want to start fighting them another day, you'd be feeling shy yourself because you realize that this neighbor recognizes me and they invited me for a meal. And that's really what happened with the Patriotic Front. So that was another plus that we were able to see. And I think that in terms of the peace that the country has enjoyed, we still remain very much peaceful as we are drawing closer to the elections. The one thing that makes me a little bit worried is the kind of fights that we see in some of the political parties at the point of adoption, and some alleged corruption as well that we've heard and seen, especially on social media. For those that use social media, we've seen that there's been a number of complaints, people complaining about what's going on, who is bribing who to make sure that they're adopted. It would have been very nice and interesting to see that we really give the power to the people at constituency or at ward level or at district level for those that are vying for mayor and so on. we give the people at the grassroots the power to really choose the people that they need without being bribed or without being forced into picking the candidates that are wrong. But suffice to say, I want to believe that the different political parties that are contesting this election are wise enough to note that despite there being a few bribes here and there, they are able to pick the right candidates. Because at the end of the day, we want to have a proper representation in Parliament, we want to have proper representation at Council, and we also want to have a proper representation at Presidency. So that's very, very much important. And I also want to say lastly that I think the ECZ itself, I think, has also this year shown some level of maturity in the sense that they are always there to respond on a number of issues that have been raised by especially the colleagues from the opposition. They are always there to try and give clarity and so on and so forth. So in general, I think that as a country we are ready to go for elections in the next 3 months and a half.
We're ready to go for elections in the next 3 months and a half. That is indeed true. Now let's get to another issue that is very pertinent before we can get down to other pressing issues that border national interest. I think we've seen a number of defections ahead of these elections. We've seen quite a number of members, senior members of the United Party for National Development, members of parliaments, getting to defect to the Patriotic Front. What, number one, does this tell us about the principles of these individual political parties and these candidates or these players that are moving from one point to the other in terms of changing their political party, vitengas?
You see, you ask a very interesting question that I think many people find it very difficult to answer, and that includes myself. Because at the end of the day, what we all need to accept is that the decisions that we all make are very much individual decisions. Now, we might think that maybe someone has made this decision because they want to benefit from whatever it is, or maybe they have been bought, or whatever reason we want to advance. But the truth remains that only the individual has made that decision, really understand why they have done it. And of course, God would be able to know what is in our minds. Now, when there's a movement of political players, of cadres and leaders in different political parties, first of all, that is expected in an election year. We cannot exclude that activity. It's expected, and I think that it's even going to get more heated. We don't expect that to stop at any point. It's only going to, I don't know if getting worse is the right word, but it's only going to get, we're going to get into much of the defections, especially after the adoptions have been done, after the nominations have been done. Then you find those who are frustrated, who want to start crisscrossing from one political party to the other. Now, the interesting part is that you will realize, and the viewer want to agree with me, that we see a lot of movement from the opposition to the ruling party. There are two things there. One, it's either there are people that feel that, look, the ruling party has performed and we want to go and join and work with them. That's one. And secondly, I was just thinking to myself today, and a thought came to my head that, the fish will smell where the water is, all right? And that's to say that there are also these politicians, because the kind of politics that we practice is that the politics is what's supposed to feed your family. The politics is what's supposed to pay you. Politics is supposed to take care of you. Now, all these guys who are involved in politics, I know that there are so many other people who would come and argue with you that it's not really a source of a living, because of course some people already have money and they don't need politics to be able to feed themselves. But the reality still remains that you want to go where you're going to feel safe. You want to go where you're going to feel comfortable. You want
but from your standpoint, really, would you confidently say that these defections are being done on principle, or perhaps the latter that you mentioned, that possibly it could be that they've seen that the water is on the other side?
Well, when you say principle, I'm wondering what kind of principles we are trying to draw attention to at this particular time. But I want to suggest that these are facts that many people don't want to believe, but there's little principle in politics. And that's why you see people moving from one political party to the other. And one example that I can give you is that we've had people who have moved from the Patriotic Front, for example, and they say all sorts of things and go and join another party, or they go and form their own political party. And then a few years later, or even few months later, they come back to the Patriotic Front. And then you ask yourself questions. are such decisions really made on principle or no? And this is why we have reduced politics to the level where some people begin suggesting that politics is a dirty game, and politics has never been a dirty game. It's only attracted sometimes, it's only attracted people with dirty ideas. It's a good game that we should all feel and want to get involved in trying to participate so that we can contribute to the governance system of the country. So are they movements done on principle? Like I said earlier on, and I repeat, it's only the individual who makes such a decision that would be able to know deep down themselves, have they made a principled move, or it's a move that has been engineered by other things? Have they been promised something, or have they been paid, or do they just feel like, look, I need to go and contribute? Because there are also people who genuinely feel that maybe they want to go and work with President Lungu because they're happy about one or two things that he has done, just as there are people who want to go and work with the UPND because maybe they believe that the UPND can do certain things. So really, I think we need to give people space to move. We need to give them the chance to cross if they feel that they have to cross, and if they have the reasons that they want to cross.
What does this do to the standing of a political party if senior members are defecting? What impact does it? Well, this is an election here. Do you see any great impact? That will, that adversely will cripple, especially the UPND ahead of these elections?
One of the things, Andrew, that any politician, who wants to lead the country, especially those in opposition, one of the things they want to do is to make sure that there is membership retention within their party. Okay, and I think that the Patriotic Front tried to do that as much as they could. When your members are moving from your party, especially because when you are in the opposition, you are already on the weaker side of the coin. When your members are moving to go and join the ruling party, it definitely paints a bad picture, all right? It definitely weakens you because politics is a game of numbers. Where the numbers are going, those are the ones that can win the elections. You cannot feel that you're going to win elections when the numbers are leaving you. Because you know numbers never lie. And when you lose one senior member of your political party to go and join another, just know that you have not lost one member, but you've lost him together with his followers, or you've lost her together with her followers. So it's a very, very bad thing that any political party want to avoid. You don't want your members to live like that. If I were in a position where I'm looking at myself as the next leader of this country, I would be telling myself, if a member wants to leave, I'll make sure that I try and convince them to the extent that by the time they're making the final decision to completely leave my political party, I would have said, I tried my best. I tried to control the situation, but it did not work. But what we see, unfortunately, is that when your member leaves your political party, you start painting them black. You said, one, he was not a factor. Two, we knew he was a traitor. He didn't contribute anything to the party. Why? Because they have left. But in a normal circumstance, if you really want to win the elections, you want to make sure that your leaders, as they are going, and that's, I think, what the Patriotic Front has tried to do. If you look at all the big people that left the Patriotic Front, all the influential politicians that left the Patriotic Front have now gone back to the PF. Very few of them have not gone. I can't remember one name, for example, but many of them, we can mention them here, have gone back to the Patriotic Front. And that's what a political party does. When your members leave, you need to find a way of bringing them back. Because again, politics is a game of numbers. If you don't get the numbers, you don't get to win the elections. It's as simple as that.
Parliament will be dissolved on the 14th of May, that is next month, 2 weeks from now. You've said that we'll continue seeing defections. Are you possibly, from a political lens, seeing defections from the PF to the other political parties?
We cannot rule out that possibility. And the reason why we can't rule out that is because there will be frustrated members, even from the PF. Those that will either not be adopted, that they were aspiring to be maybe member of parliament or councillor, or they wanted to be a mayor, that will not be adopted, or maybe they wanted to be vice president, they didn't get the chance, and they will be saying, look, Natfilile Munzenga, I can't stay in the part where I'm either not being appreciated, and we've seen that happen. So chances are that we might be able to see that movement. Now, I don't see it being a mass movement. And the reason why it's not going to be a mass movement, because the Patriot Front, in my own view, have come up with a strategy that makes it very difficult for one, once they have not been adopted, to go and either stand independent. So if I were a member of the Patriotic Front who was tried or who has applied to contest as an MP and I don't get adopted, I would rather stay in the party and work within the party. Because even if I moved, I went to the opposition, chances of achieving anything are very slim. It's different with the previous elections where names of adopted candidates have been announced way before the nominations, and then people start feeling like, no, I've not been adopted. Then they start mobilizing and they go and stand as independent. But this time it's going to be a completely different ballgame. And I think that the UPND, in another way, have also tried to use a similar strategy by not really announcing those candidates that have been adopted. So that is going to reduce chances of politicians moving from one party to the other. And I think it's, in some ways, it might even reduce the numbers of people that are going to move from the UPND into the Patriotic Front. But where do I see much of the movement? It definitely is going to be from the opposition to the Patriotic Front.
Right. Well, from the terraces, it appears that the Patriotic Front seems to be a party, that is well prepared for this particular election, with the strategies that they are putting in place to ensure that they they block any possible defections of their strong candidates. Are you seeing the same touch of a proper strategy from the side of the opposition ahead of these elections, in any angle?
In any angle, I made a comment. I think it's now a month ago, when I featured on one of the TV stations, and I was faithfully, actually I remember it was on Youth Day, and I was honestly and faithfully responding to the question when we were discussing issues of the youth, and the question popped up as to who I believed was going to win the elections this year. And I said, in one word, I said I believed that the PF was going to win the elections. And then that led into, it then led into more debates on being questions why I felt like that. And I still maintain my same position that when you look at the way the Patriotic Front is doing its politics, and you look at the opposition, you realize that definitely the Patriotic Front is much more prepared. Many of the strategies that they have been trying to implement, because remember, Andrew, winning elections does not happen on the day of voting. You win elections from the time that you start preparing for the elections up to the time that you go for the voting, and actually up to the time that you've counted and you've been announced as a winner. Now, all along, from the time that we started preparing for this election, I can assure you that it's very clear that the Patriotic Front has been scoring in terms of their strategies. For example, I can tell you, why would it make sense that you have more people who have registered to vote in the PF strongholds and you've got very few people who have registered to vote in the strongholds of the opposition? Because one of the things that you want to do as a politician is to say, look, I am going to concentrate where my strength is. So if you think that you've got your stronghold in Luapula, you want to encourage the people of Luapula to register more, so that then that's, because those are votes that you are gaining, okay?
Could that be a deliberate move? Because the institution mandated to register voters is the Electoral Commission.
Yeah, but the Electoral Commission, Andrew, does not come and wake you up from your house to go and register. You wake up yourself.
I'm going to say that was a very much calculated move by the Electoral Commission.
I firstly want to, I'm not ECZ myself.
To register more voters.
I'm not ECZ myself, but
a political analyst, you would see.
Exactly my point, Andrew.
And
the thing is,
whether we like it or not, Mr. Kapoma, the president is the one that appoints, the chair of the Electoral Commission of Zambia, and he probably calls the shots there.
I will tell you something, Andrew, that I really hope that you yourself and the viewers out there would want to begin believing now. When you are going for an argument with a person that you do not like, chances are that the possibility for you to resolve matters amicably are very slim, because you are walking into this room with a prepared mind. You know exactly what you want to say. You know what you want to do because you don't like this particular person. Now, the ECZ has been the same. The structure in terms of appointing has been the same. It was the same in 2016. It was the same in 2015. It was the same in 2011. Even in 2008 and 2006, it was the same. They have always been appointed by the sitting president, all right? And now, if you want to believe that maybe because these people are appointed by the president and therefore the president can call the shots, and let's not divert actually from what we are trying to discuss here. What we are discussing is the issue of registration of voters, right? I'll tell you, Andrew, that if, for example, the opposition had all the evidence to suggest that the ECZ was trying to play smart in terms of registering the voters, it was going to be very helpful if somebody came with evidence and said, look, we know that these people want to register more voters in their strongholds and less in our stronghold, and here's the proof that we have. Did anybody present such kind of proof? Nobody did that. Is it not true that even in the previous elections, the opposition has cried foul? It is true that the opposition has cried foul. Even in 2011 itself, if you remember very well, I voted in that election. And I know that when we were going to vote in 2011, the Patriotic Front itself accused the Electoral Commission of Zambia of being impartial in the way that they handled the election. But the Patriotic Front again came up with their own strategy on how they thought that they could manage that election and stop whatever it is that the Electoral Commission could have been wanting to do. To the extent that many of us went to vote with our own pens, because we were told the pen you're going to find there, if you vote, this is what is going to happen. So they gave us all those formulas and theories that we actually believed. I'm not the only young person at the time that believed. I want to know and believe that many other people could have believed that was going to happen. Now, even if you felt that the Electoral Commission was impartial in the way that they did things, it does not stop you as a political party from coming up with strategies that would make sure that you counter that. So if, for example, and I'm not saying this, I don't want this to be recorded. If, for example, the Electoral Commission was truly favoring the Patriotic Front, right, and the opposition was aware of that, it's not up to the opposition to just come and cry and say, look, this is what the Electoral Commission is doing. It's up to them to come up with a strategy of saying, so how then are we going to stop this idea that they have? Because the strength that you get as a politician is in understanding what your friend is doing, understanding the strategy that your friend has. If you don't know the strategy of your friend, then you are a bad politician. If you don't invest in understanding what your friend on the other side is doing, because it's only when you know what they're doing that you'll be able to come up with your own strategy. So if you come today and say, look, maybe that was just a plan by the Electoral Commission to make sure that they register more voters.
I don't need political analysis, Mr. Kapoma, but the coincidence of registering more voters in the suggested Patriotic Front strongholds, don't you think it breeds suspicion, you know, that indeed there was some form of political machination that was done in conjunction with the Electoral Commission?
Well, I do not understand why the Electoral Commission is coming in the picture, because the Electoral Commission is not a political institution. It's a completely different institution that belongs to the government. Now, I'll tell you something. Do you realize that I think almost all the councils, if my memory is right, almost all the councils in Southern Province, apart from one in Choma, I mean, no, councillors, not councils, but councillors, all the councillors in Southern Province, I think apart from one in Choma, belong to the opposition. They belong to the UPND. So they control much of that. Similarly, if you go to Ruapula, you will realize that the majority, if not 99% of the councils there, belong to the PF. And so are their MPs and the council chairmen and so on and so forth. Now, what you want to do as a political party when time for registration has come, politics is on the grassroots. That's where the politics happen. Politics don't happen in Lusaka. Politics never happen at Electoral Commission, neither do they happen at State House. They happen on the grassroots. So if you have your councillors in Southern Province that you tell, guys, time for registration has come, make sure that all your voters go to register and vote, right? And similarly, the same thing maybe happens in Northern Province. The Patriotic Front tells their stronghold to say, guys, let's get all these guys, let's take them to go and register to vote. Knock on every door, find out if these people registered and so on. If such an activity happened, and for example, our colleagues in the Southern Province never took it serious to make sure that they wake up everybody to go and register to vote, and their colleagues in Northern Province made sure that they went outside in the morning to go and pick people to go and register to vote. You cannot come and point a finger at ECZ, unless we have incidences where people went to vote and then they were told we cannot register you to vote because of whatever reason by ECZ. But like I said earlier, we do not have that evidence. No one has come up with evidence and said, these people did it deliberately, this is what they have done. The only thing that we heard is, no, some of the machines malfunctioned, and when I remembered very well, I heard of machines malfunctioning in the Eastern Province. So that thing of saying that maybe the Electoral Commission of Zambia was working together with the Patriotic Front, and not even to defend the Patriotic Front, but I'm really speaking as somebody that want to believe that the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the moment we let them to be a little bit more independent in doing what they're doing, supporting them, questioning them where we feel we need to question them, the better we're going to do it. But if we're going to brand them as another section of the Patriotic Front, then we are doing ourselves disservice. Because whatever it is that is going to come out of the election, whether you've lost genuinely, you're not going to accept. Why? Because you've said these ones are impartial. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. But remember, I've told you, when we changed government in 1991, when the UNIP lost, the Electoral Commission of Zambia bosses were appointed by President Kaunda. And UPND was defeated. I mean, UNIP was defeated. Sorry to the UPND colleagues. In 2011, when the MMD lost, the Electoral Commission was appointed by Lupia Banda. Again, the MMD lost. So we cannot want to come and use the excuse of ECZ in 2021 because somebody feels that the ECZ is being used by the Patriotic Front. That can never be an excuse. What is needed to be done is that if the opposition, for whatever reason, believes that the Electoral Commission is working together with the Patriotic Front, then they need to come up with a strategy. So complaining alone doesn't solve anything. And the example I've given you of how we've done the elections in the past really tells you that whether there is Electoral Commission which is working against you, but as a political party, if you have a strategy, you still win elections. Nothing can stop you.
But still, on the issue of strategies, and you just highlighted one that I think you've clearly seen that the PF have scored on. Is there any other strategy that you feel better than the opposition? The PF have really scored.
I think that in terms of just the general organization of the political party, I still insist and believe that the Patriotic Front is well ahead of the rest of the parties in the opposition. The Patriotic Front has put together teams that I believe are doing things that you can see in terms of the preparedness to the next election. If you even see how they have received those that have come from the opposition by way of closely engaging them into mobilizing the party, because that's what you want to do. A clever politician gets a lock, locks his house, goes into the neighbor's house and takes a fight there. And that's what the Patriotic Front has done. They have decided to lock their own house and they have taken the fight to the neighbor, all right? The other part where they have scored is in the area of their manifesto. And I've taken enough time to study the two manifestos, the one for the Patriotic Front and the one for the for the UPND. Yeah, and I'll tell you that what you find in these two manifestos is that the UPND and its leader, President Hichilema, have promised us heaven. What do I mean when I say they have promised us heaven? Of course, they have told us that, one, they are going to make education free from nursery up to university, and they're going to get, even though that is not very clear into their manifesto, if you read it, you will not get it clearly stating that, but that's what they have said on several occasions. So that's really promising us heaven. I mean, everybody would like to see such a thing happen. And they have also told us that they are going to sort out the loans for civil servants, all right? Because they believe that the civil servants now are suffocated because of the many loans that they're servicing. So they, as a government, we are going to come in and negotiate on behalf of the civil servants. I don't know how that works, because as far as I know, these loans are negotiated between the employee and the bank. How the government comes in to now want to negotiate, I really don't understand. And again, we have got a population of 6 million civil servants plus, right? Now, if you imagine that the government, for example, is going to decide to pay part of the money that these civil servants owe the banks, then the question is, where does the money come from? But is it a good thing? If it happened, yes, it definitely is a good thing. If you look at the proposals that, and of course, before I forget, what they've done on mining again is that they have told us that on mining what we're going to do is we are going to get back the mines to foreign companies because they are better equipped and they are well trained to manage our mines. They believe, the UPND believes that as a country, as a government, as Zambia, we do not have enough skills and the capacity to manage these mines. So they are saying that, look, we are better off letting the mines be managed by foreigners. Right. What you get in the Patriotic Front is, of course, they've said, look, the mines are going to be managed by us, the Zambians, and I think they've started that process by getting the mines back as a government. What does that do? It gives confidence to the people in the Copper Belt who are miners who are working in those mines, because you expect your own father in your own house to treat you better than your neighbor. I mean, it's just a non-fact. You want to feel that if these mines are owned by government, government will be able to listen when we cry as miners. So they have carefully crafted that idea, and I think that it's going to work, and it's working. Then on the issue of education, again, they'll tell you that, look, we have built so many schools and universities. What we need to do now is to equip these institutions so that they provide quality education, which is a good thing again. And they have also told you that it's very difficult for any government in this world, for that matter, to be able to do free health care and free education. Very few governments have managed to do that. The list that you want to do is...
Really, Mr. Kapoma, I do know for a fact that your thought is that the PF are likely to, to win these elections. But don't you think the PF have fallen from grace? They have failed to score on many issues that promised the people of Zambia in 2016. In 2016, if you look at their manifesto from 2016 to 2021, many of those things that they promised the people of Zambia have not been achieved. Right? They promised more jobs to the people of Zambia. If you look at the jobs they've created against the ones that they promised, you realize that not so well. Right?
Andrew, before you gravitate from there, I need to advise you something.
If you look at the, and I'm going to give you the statistics.
Give me the statistics, please.
If you look at the current inflation, not so attractive, all right? It's unprecedented in the history of this country that the highest note cannot buy a bag of millimil. You have to top up a 35 kwacha on top to buy a bag of millimil. It is for the first time, really, that many people feel it is better in the days of Kaunda than now under the PF. Don't you think, really? With all these economic indicators, look at how much PF has borrowed.
Andrew.
We are standing on dates that is over $18.5 billion. That is both domestic and external date. And many other issues that I can speak on top of my head. And these are issues that, are already available to us. Don't you think, really, that cripples the chances of the PF forming government?
Andrew, I was trying to interrupt you, but you are being too strong for me. I want to advise that when you are trying to weigh the political scenario in a country, you must be very careful with which scale you use, all right? Now, what you are trying to tell me in all your explanation, really what you are trying to say is that the cost of living is very high, right? And it's very true that the cost of living is higher than what the Patriotic Front found. When you look at the food basket in 2011 and you look at the food basket today, the difference is completely different. It's very, very high, which is a non-fact. Now, this is why I say that you have to be very careful what scale you are using. You want to believe and understand. Before I even go there, I want to give you an example and let you know that there's nowhere in the world where the prices of commodities will start going down as time is moving. You don't expect that now because the PF has come into government, so because a bag of millimil is at 34, it should now go at 33. And then the next time it should go at 28. Then the next time it should go at 21. You expect things to start going up. And this is a fact that we need to be very careful and understand that even if we changed government this year, you don't expect the cost of living to start going down. It shall always go up, all right? What you need to understand is how we manage the economy. Because even when you talk about,
the first promise,
when you say, Andrew, I want you to give me a chance to respond to your question, because you've asked me a question. When you talk about the days of Kaunda being better, Andrew, you need to clean that thought off your head, because the days of Kaunda were really bad. You can't compare them to the way we are living now. Those were very, very hard times that eating eggs was such a luxury. Eating just chicken. Some of us had to share a wing of chicken, maybe 4 of you as boys in the home. It's completely different now, okay? Many homes are able to afford a lot of things. You want to be able to travel, Andrew, and be able to understand some of these challenges that we face as a country. Are they only in Zambia or are they global? We used to laugh at Chimbakambudi, me, myself inclusive, when Chimbakambudi would come and say, this thing is global, right? Do you know, Andrew, that today, if you went to Nakonde, the people from Tanzania are crossing into Zambia to come and buy things from here and go back to Tanzania, because the cost of living there is way higher than what you have here. I'm talking about Tanzania, which has been claiming to have had the best president. They have had the best economy, according to them. But I'll tell you, and these are facts I'm giving you, even if you crossed over to Congo, cross over to Mozambique, go and ask how much is a bag of meal. They'll tell you it's not costing anything less than, if you convert, anything less than 300 kwacha. So when you look at all the neighboring countries that we have, as Zambia, you realize that in comparison to the neighbors that we have, you don't expect, for example, a bag of meal in Congo, which is costing 400 kwacha, it's costing 30 kwacha here. So the cost of living will always go up. And finally, you can never use poverty as a measure to know who's going to win or lose elections. Because the reason is that it's said that for anyone to be able to win elections, you need to use the available resource. So sometimes even poverty can be an available resource that one uses to win elections.
It had been honest and truthful, Mr. Kapoma. All right? The Patriotic Front Party came in government under the premise of to better the lives of the Zambian people.
But are the lives of the Zambian people not better? What scale are you using to tell me that they're not better?
In comparative terms, from
So
how
explain
the
it
people
to
of
me,
Zambia
or to the viewers so they understand.
in 2011, before prior to 2011, in the MMD times, are you confident enough, Mr. Kapoma, that things are now better as opposed to
You are the one who's telling me that things are not better now. And I've said, help us understand how.
The prices of commodities. The prices of commodities have been skyrocketing. And
do you also realize that
4 weeks ago placed the blame on the private sector for having a hand in sabotaging the economy,
Andrew,
when it's supposed to be in control of this economy?
Andrew, have you heard of?
But if the president is going to say the private sector is sabotaging the economy, what does that tell you?
There's always possibilities that the private sectors will do that. There are cartels.
If the
all right?
president is
there are
going
cartels
to
that control
an
pricing.
Economic recovery program, that tells you that the economy is not doing well. In fact,
but
we are now growing in the negative as an economy.
Why are you doing the economic recovery program? It doesn't that show concern? Because you have to look at all the factors that make these things happen. But before I forget my thought, when you are talking about the cost of things going up, it's the same thing that when you are in employment, when you are at a job, you expect your salary to be going up. You don't expect your salary to start going down. Okay? So even civil servants also will have, from now, maybe you have 11% increase in your salary, you have another 5% increase. It's same if all the other employers, even in the private sector. When you've employed people, you are going to be increasing their salaries. Now, you can't be increasing salaries, for example, and then the cost of living is going down. So your salary is going up and cooking oil is going down. All right? So we need to, first of all, appreciate that so many factors that could lead to this. Now, one of the examples that I gave in one of the interviews that I had, and I was really being questioned about why is it that the Patriotic Front has not given us more money in the pockets like they promised? Because I know you've been avoiding to say that, but I'll answer you even if you haven't asked me. You have to make a decision sometimes even in a home. If you were married and you and your wife decide that you want to start building a house, you know what you're going to do? You're going to call for a boardroom, the two of you, boardroom meeting, and say, look, we have to start building. So this 4x4 that we drive, we are going to put it on hold for a little bit. We're going to start driving the Corolla because it's economic on the fuel. Our children are not going to eat the way they used to eat. We're not going to go out to Malaysia for a holiday. We're not going to do this and that. You want to have that conversation. Why having that conversation? Because now you've made a decision to build your own home. For example, if you've been renting, you want to shift and live in your own house. So you've got to sacrifice certain things. And this is something that I said that when you look at what the PF promised, much of their promises were based on you and I. I don't remember President Sata standing somewhere. Of course, he said in one or two ways about how he's going to open up Zambia. I'm going to do this road and I'm going to do that. But what you see now is that we've got flyover bridges. I don't remember being promised a flyover bridge in 2011. When I went to vote, I never voted for a flyover bridge. Never. Even in 2016 maybe. But maybe then government sees it fit and say, look guys, we've got to open up the country. We need to put infrastructures as one of the priorities, and so let's go this direction. And they start pushing that direction. So as they're pushing on the part of infrastructure, you expect that then the other part is affected. But the truth is it a good thing or it's a bad thing? It could be a good thing because, and that's why if you look at their manifesto now, they're saying that moving forward, they're going to now be concentrating on making the economy recover. Why? Because they have potentially realized that all this infrastructure that we have done is what has affected the other part of life. But even when that is the case, if you went to Tanzania, you went to Congo, or you went to Mozambique, you find that the cost of living there is still way higher than what we have here. So we should not just complain without understanding what is going on globally. We need to know these are the things that are happening. But of course,
the Zambian people would want to judge the Patriotic Front from what they promised them. All right, and clearly that is what the Zambian people have been trying to judge them on. If the PF didn't promise heaven on earth, the Zambian people wouldn't have cried. All right, I wanted to give a practical example. On the 5th of February 2016, one of the issues that President Lungu touched on is the fact that I want to address the issue of milling. Milling by then, was expensive. It was about 59 kwacha. And he made a promise that one of the issues that I want to tackle is an issue of milling. I want to bring it down to 34 kwacha. Now, the price of milling has gone even above, the price it was at in 2015 at 59 kwacha, right? And these are economic indicators that the people of Zambia would want to judge the PF on. And I don't know what scale you're using to judge that the PF have performed quite well in terms of addressing the challenges that the people of Zambia.
I've said they've performed very well in infrastructure development, extremely well. You can't fault them on that, Andrew. You need to take a drive. Go to the Eastern Province and find the hospital that you find in Nimba. You forget that you're in the bush. Go to Ruapula and see the university that you find there. Go to Northern Province and see the hospitals that you find there. So in the area of infrastructure development, they have performed pretty well.
To the Human Development Index and look at an individual, all right? How much have they done to improve an individual in the name of David Kapoma, all right? One of the key things that the opposition speaks on highly on is the fact that, look, I have to have a decent meal. At least I have to have breakfast, lunch, and supper, a decent meal. Are you telling me that from the time that PF came into power, we could add figures to how many people have been, gotten out of poverty? Are we able to add numbers? And also, maybe you can help us understand what the real definition of development is. What is the real definition of development?
Well, if you ask about what the real definition of development is, I will tell you in a way that makes somebody understands who are watching, you and I.
Please, go ahead.
You are developing, you are moving from this level to the higher level, okay? So whatever it is that you are touching is improving. You are developing, just like a child grows. The child develops from being a toddler into a real man like you are yourself. Yeah. Now, the question that you've asked me is, can we say that...
How much is this translating to an individual in Nimba? These roads that we're seeing, these flyover bridges, how much is it translating to a colleague in Kaunda Square? Is this what impact really, does this infrastructure have on people?
Time is money, Andrew. And if you ask me, who is a businessman, I'll tell you that time is money. Every minute that I spend on the road is counting. When I'm supposed to be making money and I'm on the road, I'm losing money. I want to move quick get to where I'm going and be able to do my business and get back to my original destination. All right? Now, if you're asking, it's not only about doing the roads. You want to make your country attractive. You want to make your country beautiful. You want to make your country as something that you live in and you feel proud. If you went to countries where the road network is bad and you experience the traffic, you experience the frustration where you have to turn off your engine in a very hot environment to just be able to get from point A to point B. If you're asking about what impact has got the infrastructure, the hospital in Nimba has to do, I mean, you are improving the lives of the people in that particular area. Their health is not going to be the same. You had situations where when mothers in Nimba want to give birth, they are not able to access a proper hospital. But now the hospital is just across their house, they can see it.
Which means they don't have medicine. But even the roads that you're talking about, how many Zambians drive really, Mr. Kapoma, that you would say will benefit from the roads?
Whether you drive, Andrew, or you don't drive, the fact is you every day somehow move from point A to point B, and you use those roads. So it's not about owning a car, my brother. It's not about owning a car. It's about what are you benefiting. And when you are talking about the medicines not being available from these hospitals that have been built, I'll also tell you that to a larger extent we are trying to be very much economical with the truth. Because what you are telling me is what you hear. Because I know you have never seen the hospital in Nimba. You've never been to that hospital and asked the clinical officer whether they have medicine or not.
There are a number of clinics around here.
No, but we are talking about a particular hospital in Nimba, which you have never been yourself. You don't know that people there do not have. It's what you are telling me, Andrew. What you are telling me is what you hear, or what people perceive to be the truth.
That's not true.
The only way you are going to appreciate these things is if you take interest yourself. You go to these hospitals, but even if, let's take for example that it's true that they did not have medicine, you can never tell me that you're going to have a hospital and not have medicine throughout. Because if you came to the hospital today and I tell you that today we don't have Coartem, it does not mean that the hospital does not have medicine. It simply means that particular drug is not available at that particular time. It's the same. I can come in your house today and I find there's no bread. Why? Maybe because you forget to buy the bread, or it has simply finished, you have not replenished what's supposed to be bought. So you can't put a scale on that. The thing is, you've built this infrastructure, it's there. Someone is going to tell you, no, you've just built this infrastructure. Maybe you say there are no nurses or there's no medicine in this hospital. How can you have a hospital which is open and is operating and there's no medicine? And you want to believe, and you're a journalist who can simply go and find out. If you're saying you've got so many hospitals here in Lusaka that do not have medicine, you can go to them and find out. Do you have or you do not have the medicine? Because if you are going to be believing on only what is heard, what people say, and you take it as gospel truth, and you want to run with it, and then you come and ask me a question on a show like this, I will be saying that you are being unfair to yourself. You want to be able to find out, get the truth, then you bring the truth.
Like I said, I can give a practical example of one particular clinic where I went to do private investigation.
And you said one clinic. How many clinics do you have in this country?
You know, there are quite a number of clinics. But
how many? Do you know the number that we have in this country?
The number of clinics and hospitals that we have in this country. And I'm trying to give you a practical example that some of those hospitals you're talking about don't have proper medicine, don't have enough healthy personnel to attend to patients. And I'm very keen about Charleston Clinic because the time I went there, I found a number of patients lying down. And I think I did say this on one of our shows.
And did you know that what you say is the reason why you realize that maybe that's the reason why the government of the day has decided to build more clinics and hospitals? It's because you just said that you find a lot of people, whether they were waiting to be attended or so. So it tells you that we do not have enough infrastructure. So if someone comes and they want to put more infrastructure, you need to give them a kudo where it's supposed to be given. You can't just shoot them down because somebody came and gave you an idea that we do not have enough.
Not that we're shooting anyone down, but we're trying to get to the core of these issues because these are issues that border national interest and these are issues that are very important. We have a program called The Viewer's Opinion where people call in and these are issues that they present to us as a station. And, we record all these issues that they present to us. And to be honest with you, I don't think many Zambians could just pick up a call and say, I went to Nimba General Hospital, I wanted Coartem, and I didn't find it. I don't think there would be that.
But did you also know that there are also politicians who find people to give you those calls? Or who find people to send you those messages? Are you aware of that?
But let's get to the topic that we have today. Is there a window of change in Zambia?
There's no window of change in Zambia.
There's no window of change.
No, there isn't.
Why do you say so?
I've explained why there's no window of change. Where is the window of change? Have you seen it yourself?
What are the indicators of a window of change?
A window of change, you will know way before elections. You will see the movement of politicians. You will see the wind is going to be telling you, like in 2011, for example, way before elections, many of us who were going to vote in that election, we were going to the polling station with a fist. Okay? Whenever President Satame Soil, rest in peace, was on Radio Phoenix, for example, or was on TV, everybody was tuned to radio to listen to what he was saying. And everybody would go on the street. What you have today is you find someone who's complaining that, yeah, the economy is bad. But are they telling you that because the economy is bad, we are going to vote out the Patriotic Front? You also find people, and this is why I keep saying that there's a lack of strategy on the part of the opposition. Because you will not find a person on the street, okay? If you ask out of 10, very few are going to tell you, I'm voting at the PF, I'm voting for this particular political party. You're going to find people are going to tell you, yeah, things are hard, but then again, we don't have an option. Or the opposition is divided. So which window of change then can you talk about? And again, I've said this, Andrew, and it's a challenge. If really Muvi TV feels that after the August 12 election, you want to bring me back on set, whether the opposition would have won or lost, you want to come and bring me back and ask me those questions, I can tell you that I'll come and testify, and I'll come and tell you that I told you that the opposition had no plan, and for sure they have lost. Because that's really what is going to happen. Yeah. They don't like to hear that, I know, but it's a truth. It's a truth that I have to say.
What would, like I said earlier again, and I keep saying, with 105 days to go, what would you advise the opposition, if the opposition had to, peradventure things had to change, what do you think are some of the issues that the opposition ought to work on for them to possibly maybe oust?
The opposition need to respect critics and be able to act on what we advise them.
Right now, the opposition doesn't respect critics.
Well, if you ask me, if I say today that the opposition is going to lose, you think they are going to respect me, or they are going to call me a paid cadre, or they are going to say, I don't know what I'm talking about? I've been involved in elections, not only in this country, even in other countries. And I've never missed, not even one, I've never missed when I tell you this is a party that is winning, it's a party that is winning. And that's exactly what I've said in this country. Because I'm able to see that the opposition is fragmented. You had an opposition alliance of 15 members plus. It has now been reduced to 1. You have people moving from the opposition to go and join the ruling party. And then you expect a person like me to come and tell you that the opposition is winning. Even when I made that statement, by the way, then Professor Piri agrees with me. And then you had, again, Bateres from Pundu echoed my words by saying that the opposition was divided and they were not able to win. And they too also said that there was no wind of change. So this is not even about age. It's not because I'm young I can't see. I've got senior citizens who have supported what I said.
We've got State Counsel John Sanga, who has promised to petition the eligibility of the president to contest this year's elections. Are you seeing, from a political lens, are you seeing President Lungu being barred from contesting?
But on what grounds is President Lungu going to be barred? Which legal grounds? The Constitution is very clear, Andrew. The Constitution of Zambia is very, very clear. And I wonder where my senior brother, John Sangwa, State Counsel, gets his argument from. But I'll tell you what. And this is why if you asked me about the weakness of the Patriotic Front, I'll tell you that it's potentially their inability to make sure that these things that we are saying here get to the people. The people begin understanding. Because when you're talking about the eligibility of President Edgar Lungu, their arguments are baseless. The arguments of the opposers of this are extremely baseless. One of the things that they'll tell you is that they'll come and say, look, President Lungu has been sworn in twice, 2 times. Okay? So he can't be sworn in again for the 3rd time. Now, what they are doing, first of all, is that they're being very economical. And I actually think that Counsel John Sangwa knows the truth. He knows really that President Lungu qualifies and is eligible to contest, but he just says that for the sake of saying it, or maybe for other agendas. Because The Constitution of Zambia, Amendment 2016, is very clear. When you start reading from Article 106 going down, all right, it will tell you that because President Lungu did not, in his very first time that he was elected, he never went beyond 3 years. It means that that cannot be counted as a term. It cannot be counted as a term.
Yep.
Now, there's something even more interesting that you want to pay attention to. And to understand this, you want to compare the 1996 Constitution and the 2016 Constitution. That's a space of 10 years, all right? In the 1996 Constitution, if you read Article 35 going down, it's very clear that if a person has been elected, not holding office, but elected twice, and President Lungu has been elected twice, right? So, 1996, if the person has been elected twice, they do not qualify, or they are not eligible to stand again. In 2016 Constitution, it says if a person has held office 2 times, holding office, not being elected, but holding office. Now, what is office? Office is anything that stretches from year 1 to year 3. Then you've held office. If you haven't gone up to the 3rd year, you have not held office. It means also in other terms that, and when President Lungu won the elections in 2015, had he failed to win in 2016, he was not going to benefit from the presidential package, because the Constitution would have said, look, yes, we won, but your term was not counted as a full term. Therefore, you can't benefit from this, from the benefits. So what we use at present time is the current Constitution, which one of the arguments they will tell you is that you are not supposed to be sworn in 3 times. The current Constitution does allow that, because if peradventure the president is not able to continue to rule, and the vice president takes over, the vice president will be sworn in. All right? The vice president will be sworn in to be president. If that term that vice president has taken over does not stretch beyond 3 years, it means that this vice president, which is now president, is eligible to go for 2 terms as president, 2 5-year terms as president. So the reason why the 2016 Constitution put that description of what a term is because they realize that there's this issue of the president taking over. Can you imagine, for example, if President Lungu today, as in today, 3 months and a half before elections, was not able to continue to rule us as a president, and then President Inongewina is sworn in to take over from President Lungu. Yeah. And then if you did not give a very proper description of what a term is, you'd be saying that, oh, she's president, you're going to count 3 months as 1 term. How would you be counting 3 months as 1 term? So that's why the Constitution is very clear, and I'm urging people to read. Read Constitution, 2016 Constitution from 100, Article 100, all the way up to 106. Read the 1996 Constitution, Article 35. When you read that, just read that, even in 2 minutes, and then you come and read the 2006 Constitution, it's very clear, Andrew, extremely clear, that this person is eligible to contest. Yeah. What is the people who are opposing? What are they trying to achieve? What is their agenda? That's the questions that we now need to begin asking. But what I would like to see, really, is that 3 months and a half to go before elections, people should say, guys, look, let's forget this thing of eligibility, because it's not going anywhere. And that's why the Constitutional Court, if you've seen what is in the news now, the Constitutional Court simply ruled out and said, look, guys, we're not going to be discussing this. We've already told you less than 3 years is not a term. So let this person concentrate on preparing himself to contest as president, because it does qualify. So if we want to look at it with balanced lenses, and we want to look at it with balanced minds without any fear or favor, without trying to make somebody look like a lawbreaker, then we should be able to say that the president does qualify to contest.
I don't know, but to have a thought cross in your mind that State Counsel John Sangwa is up to something, don't you think it's a disservice to his profession as a lawyer?
I wouldn't say that. First of all, he's a human being, just like me and you. Whatever it is that we do as human beings, we know why we do what we do. I know why I'm in this show. I know why I'm responding to your questions. He also does know why he puts his argument forward.
But because we also have... Point, do you think There are ill intentions.
No, no, no. I never said that there are ill intentions, and don't put words in my mouth. I never said that. There is, what I said is that he knows the reason why is opposing that. Yeah. He knows the reason why, because you also have another senior counsel in the name of Velas Munsha, who's practicing, of course, outside, who has strongly argued that, yes, the president does qualify. So we are not only looking at about one person. This is not even about a personal thing. This is about different lawyers having different interpretations. Yeah, if you look at even in the lawyers in the Patriotic Front, the legal minds in the Patriotic Front, they'll argue that he qualifies. You look at the lawyers, all the lawyers from the opposition side argue that it doesn't qualify. This is why now my argument that everybody knows what he's doing qualifies. Everybody is doing it because they know what they're doing. The truth, which is in black and white in the Constitution, especially if you compare 1996 and 2006, you realize 2016, you realize, Andrew, that yes, the president does qualify. The only thing we need to do is to give the man time to finish his term in peace. So we put this thing behind us.
I'd like to thank you so much.
Are you saying that our time is over already?
Yes, our time is over. We've actually gone past an hour. We are getting to time of the news. Thank you so much for having made time to appear on the assignment. All right, I was speaking to Mr. David Kapoma, a political analyst. We're discussing whether there's a wind of change ahead of the elections on the 12th of August, 2021. My name is Andrew Mwansa. On behalf of the entire production crew for now, I'm Biag Dalisani. God bless Africa and God bless Zambia. Good night.